Welcome to Business Playmakers, the podcast that meets with innovators, trailblazers, and leaders to learn about their experience and what success really means. Hosted by entrepreneur and leadership coach Kyle Gorman.
Business Playmakers is presented by the Employer Blueprint. Employer Blueprint is dedicated to management and leadership development through one-on-one coaching and group seminars. You can find free resources from Employer Blueprint through YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And for more information, simply visit employerblueprint.com. This is your host, Kyle Gorman, and I am pleased to introduce you to today's Playmaker, Don Brown. Don has a tremendous amount of experience, including winner of the National Lands End Marketing Competition. He's been written about in Fortune magazine. He's got a degree from Valparaiso University. He's been a successful entrepreneur, grown and sold his business. He's worked for a logistics firm, which gave him the opportunity to work with several Fortune 100 companies such as John Deere, Goodyear, Subaru, and Montgomery Ward. At the core, Don has a real servant's heart and has been a prison chaplain, has had small group ministries, teen ministries, and has been a court-appointed special advocate for children. Don's been married to his wife for over 28 years now, and she is a practicing physician. She's had her practice for more than 20 years, and they have had the opportunity to do several mission trips throughout the world, such as Haiti, Dominican Republic, Togo, China, and Guatemala. They have 9 children, 5 of which are adopted, and he really lives on the philosophy that the mission field for us all is right where God has us. I think you're really going to enjoy today's episode. I'd be interested in any feedback that you might have, and welcome Don to the show. Well, Don, I really appreciate you coming in. I know we talked about this maybe about a month or so ago about potentially coming on the show, and so I appreciate you taking the time out to come in. And you have a lot of experience, and you're very humble about that. So I'm really looking forward to just kind of getting an opportunity to hear it, and just how priorities in your life have focused and shifted over time. So as we jump in here, can you share just kind of a brief synopsis and overview of your professional experience and what that's looked like for you?
Well, shortly after college, I started my own computer training business. Mm-hmm. It was a business where we would do basic understanding of computer parts, but I also would go into corporations that had a custom-made package. Mm-hmm. A lot of times they would have, 3 to 5 staff members that were trained on it.
Right.
Those people would move on, and now they have nobody that was officially trained on it.
Yeah.
And so it's a software piece that is partially used, but they really don't know what's going on. And so
right.
I would typically go in, they'd hand me the manual, give me administrative access to the software. I'd work through it, and then I'd go back in and retrain new staff on that. And it was a good job for a while, a good business, and competition started to change as technology evolved.
Right.
Pretty soon, a computer for 3 weeks, and then there's a new one out, and new hardware, faster, more memory, all of those different things. And so as a small business owner, it was really hard to compete and keep up with all of that. So I ultimately sold that.
Okay.
From there, I got involved with a logistics firm and was tasked with working with John Deere and creating a distribution center for them that was basically non-union. Not that there's anything wrong with having unions, right, but they wanted to try something different there. Yeah. A UAW shop, which does good work, but they wanted to try something a little bit different.
Right.
And so we worked with creating an environment that was strategic in such that pay for performance stuff. They were compensated based on what they accomplished in their job.
Right.
And we worked on that, and that was a little over 4 years that I worked directly with that contract, getting them up and running, hiring and staffing, and doing most of the training for everybody in the warehouse. Yeah. We ended up with just over $1 billion gross revenue out per year from that facility.
Wow.
And then the logistics firm started utilizing me in different areas. I was doing work for Goodyear and Subaru and Montgomery Ward, and kind of traveling the country helping get those distribution centers predominantly up and running, working with different processes and making them more efficient.
Yeah.
in the middle of that, my wife went through medical school and residency and became a physician. So one of us needed to spend some time with our kids. And we spent a lot of time and money to get her through that. So it made sense that I would be the one to step up to the plate and become the stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
I'm not one that likes to sit idle. So shortly thereafter, I started seminary and got a master's in pastoral ministry and began chaplaincy work at a prison and then doing other ministries.
Yeah.
Did that for about 9 years with the chaplain stuff, which I still kind of hold my title at the prison, and I get in there, and I was just there actually Sunday doing Bible study. Yeah. And then from there, looking to go back into a profession as my children are getting older and my wife is looking to step back from her time. I jumped in and joined C12, which is an organization where I get to use both my ministry and my professional background to work with different CEOs and help them grow their business and use it as a platform for ministry. And so that's what I'm currently doing.
That's great. And for those that don't know, C12, as Donnie mentioned, is an organization that's specifically focused on business owners, CEOs primarily, but high-end decision makers that are Christians. And so it's incorporating their faith with business and how to do that properly. And one of the functions being to see, the biblical principles in business. And so you came on board with C12 6 months or so ago. Does that sound about right?
Technically,
kind of
my
official.
An official is a little less than that.
Yeah.
The training, actually, it's been probably close to 9 months.
Okay.
Eight months, anyways.
Yeah. So
hasn't been real long yet.
Yeah. So still kind of in the ramp up period of all of that. Well, good. And so and it is really interesting as you walk through that, the stages of your career and kind of the priorities as they've been as an entrepreneur, and then working in kind of the corporate side and getting engaged in that. Then I hate to say stepping back because it's so important, but making a shift into being a stay-at-home dad and finding the priority in that, and then now looking at kind of a fourth career almost on the professional side and being able to merge your passion for ministry and your knowledge and passion for business. But so through the course of that, are there any mentors that you've had along the way that you feel have helped shape who you are or your mindset or help guide you along the way?
One really stands out. Gary Comer was the founder, I guess, of Land's End Corporation, based out of Dodgeville, Wisconsin. While I was in college, I had the privilege of meeting him. I competed in their national marketing competition.
Yes, yeah.
And so having...
And won, by the way. I should mention that.
Won that. And so through that, I got to meet him. And he actually offered me a job, which was very flattering. But he taught me some things, in particular, to make sure you enjoy what you do.
Right.
If you figure that of your waking hours, you spend most of that on any given day revolved around your occupation. If you're working even 8 hours a day plus lunch break or whatever in your travel time, the majority of your waking hours is revolved around your occupation. Absolutely. So if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you're either doing it wrong or in the wrong occupation. And so that from the very get-go, he, just to share a little insight, he actually put in shag carpet in his office and walked barefoot in his office because he wanted to enjoy that.
Good for him.
So he made it a point to practice what he preached, and that was a really neat thing to think about. So making it a point to always enjoy what you're doing. And he made the comment, he said, it's not like he wouldn't rather be out on a boat or golfing or something, but because we have to earn an income, let's make the most of it while we do it.
Right. So that is good advice. That's a good lesson learned. And so through the course of your career, are there any moments that you still look back on, that you might call a win or a pinnacle moment for you, that you feel like you'll always kind of remember as this was a momentous occasion for me in my career?
I think seeing what John Deere had asked come into fruition, and that we created an environment where an order puller, for example, could earn a wage that ultimately translated to about $50,000 a year for an hourly job.
And this was in about what year, just to put that into perspective?
That would have been 96.
Yeah. So that's a pretty respectable income for at that point in a position that wasn't necessarily known for that.
What you technically say is just an hourly labor job.
Right, right.
But give them the opportunity based on performance and accuracy metrics that they could achieve a really good income. To see that happen and see the people that wanted to work hard be rewarded in such a way, that was a huge highlight for me.
Yeah.
And the fact that when I decided to transition from that contract on, the vice president of John Deere at the time, Joe England, actually contacted me just to say thanks.
Wow.
That meant a lot.
Yeah, that's a nice pat on the back. And it had to be neat, you know, to that point, what they were asking to be done, and knowing that's a pretty big hill to climb, and to be able to look back and actually see it accomplished. I would imagine that was, you know, it's always interesting in a person's career. You know, we get so many of these incremental steps. Sometimes it's hard to be able to look back and see something and say, oh, wow, we really did create something that has a big impact here. That's really cool.
And recognize I was a part of a team that did this. It wasn't
sure.
Don did this. There were many people involved. I just got to play a role, and so that was
that's great. And so on the flip side of that, are there any experiences that you've had through the course of your career that you recognized, kind of define as a failing moment, or something that you feel like huge lesson learned that you'll never forget, that this was something that I should have done differently, or that should have played out differently than maybe what I'd hoped?
The one with my computer business, for example, I should have been able to read the signs better, to see the way the competition was coming in and the way the business needed to transition.
Yeah.
That was something that I think, in hindsight, I would have made changes sooner. That would either I would have sold sooner, or maybe made some modifications.
Right.
I think in the long run, it ended up costing much more than it should have.
Yeah.
And so I think attention to detail of the industry and kind of being alert in the environment, not just in the business in and of itself. Was critical. And I was young, a young entrepreneur that really still learning. I'm still learning today.
Yeah. You know, as we kind of talked about that, you've had a lot of different, I'm going to say focal points, different targets in your career as you've gone along. But through the course of that, how do you define success as it is today, or maybe how has that definition been through the course of your career?
I think it's easiest just to define it today more than through the course of the career. I think when I started, I probably was very fame motivated and oriented. When I won the marketing competition, I got my picture in Fortune magazine and was kind of puffed up all about that. It was all
21, 22 years old, maybe 20.
Yeah, 22.
Yeah.
And so just feeling all big and full of myself, and thinking that's what I wanted, was to be recognized and globally known, so to speak. That was what I would have originally indicated as success. Not to mention financial success. You know, that the big paycheck would have been an identifier.
Sure.
But I think that I have matured substantially now, and I would actually define success as kind of leaving a legacy or making an impact. There was a sign in an office one time that kind of resonated with me. It says, you know, everybody makes us happy, sometimes when they walk into the office and sometimes when they walk out.
Yes.
And so I want to be the type of person that when I walk in, people are glad to see me.
Yeah.
When I show up somewhere, they're happy. And then if I leave, or if something would happen to me and I can't return, then I would be missed. Leaving that almost atomic-sized crater of where I've been, that, boy, I don't know that we could ever fill his shoes.
Right.
See, to me, that's success, that if something happened to me, I would want the places I've been to say, I don't know how we're going to get it done because nobody could do it the way he did it. Whether it's in my business or even in my personal life with my wife, I want her to know that nobody will love her as much as I love her. With my children, I want there to be such incredible memories that they're just going to miss Dad being around. And so that's success in my measurement. That if I'm gone, it will be hard to replace me.
And do you believe at this point, have you reached that level of success, or are you reaching that level of success?
I think every day is a growing moment and getting better and better at it. I think without a doubt my wife knows that there will be no one that can love her as much as I do. And I've had great memories with my kids. I think I've achieved that at a certain level. I certainly would like to do more and have a greater impact. And I've tried to make that the case of whether it's doing ministry work or business work, that when I leave, I have that kind of impact. When I left the John Deere facility, for example, to replace the things that I did, they had to hire 3 people. I mean, that to me feels good that it took many shoes. Now, granted, they were expanding some things, so it wasn't just about me, but I had an impact that was touching a lot of areas. And so I work at that every day and try to make it meaningful. When I wake up in the morning, I try to think, what kind of impact will I have today? And I think the more I focus on that in the morning as I start my day, the day tends to go the direction to where I'm making a difference. But I still have a ways to go. I still have a ways to go.
So what are some keys to that success you think that you've been able to experience along the way? What are some kind of metrics that you use to stay the course?
Well, that would be the first one. When I wake up in the morning, to start off with, if God calls me home, what kind of impact am I leaving? And so as I go throughout my day, I'm thinking, when I leave here, will it be a positive experience? Will they have learned something, gained something? Will there have been a benefit to the people that I'm in contact with? The second thing is I try to always make wise decisions. And so I have a kind of a litmus test, so to speak, of how I make a wise decision. And I put my priorities out there, and my first is God, my second is my wife, third is my kids, fourth my friends, and fifth is my career. And I use the question as I go to make a decision, will it draw me closer to God or pull me further away? Will it make me closer to my wife or further from her? My kids, the same thing, all the way down the list. And if it aligns with all of those things, then it's a wise decision. If it conflicts with any of those, then I have to analyze and take a bigger picture understanding of, in the short run, it may be a negative with my kids because I'm spending more time at my job, but it's only temporary, and it's very temporary, and they're going to see it because it's showing what hard work looks like, or something of that nature. And so you process it, and you use that test to make sure you're making wise decisions.
That's great.
And the third for me as a Christian man is, I go through Ephesians 6, and I put on my armor every day and recognize that things are not always easy. There's always battles to be fought. And I want to have the right perspective of how I'm engaging in that battle. So,
remind me, just Ephesians 6, is that put on the full armor of God when the day of evil comes?
That's correct, And so the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, belt of truth, shoes of peace, shield of faith, and the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. So I may have missed one. I don't think so, but I try to walk through that and actually visualize me putting that on as I start my day. And it tends to make the conflicts that I experience lessened, so that I'm more prepared.
That's great. So we're going to look forward a little bit here. What do the next 10 years look like for you professionally? What does that look like in the trajectory of your career?
Well, I think it starts with, on the professional side with C12, that I am planning on growing my impact on the businesses that I currently work with, as well as future businesses as I grow this area, and growing relationships with the people in the community and that I'm dealing with directly, so that it can just be a positive thing. I think what C12 does has tremendous benefits on the community in general, as well as businesses specifically that are engaged. We can make them be more productive, more successful, more efficient, and giving God the glory all the way through. And so the more I see in 10 years of me, hopefully with the Lord's help, expanding this territory to where almost every business in the area has heard about it and had the opportunity to join.
Yeah.
Let them make their own decisions with respect to that. But
Right. That's great. That's a great goal. And something and admittedly, this is sort of a personal thing for me. I enjoy asking this question in this forum, but what does the concept of retirement look like for you?
Well, first off, I don't believe that retirement's biblical.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
I don't see retirement as something that I'm shooting for.
Right.
I believe there will be a day when God will transition me from this aspect of ministry to some other aspect of ministry, whatever that will be.
Right.
And I will just follow His lead. Mm-hmm. But as long as I have breath, I have work to do. Mm-hmm. I don't want to sit idle. I don't want to twiddle my thumbs and watch daytime soap operas or whatever. That's just not my cup of tea. So
sure. So what do you do if as you get in your car this afternoon, you find out that you just won $1 million? What does that look like?
Then I have $1 million to give away to charity. Mm-hmm. God's blessed me, and so if I hit $1 million, I'll be excited to see which charities we can give that to. My wife and I'll sit down and pray about it, and it won't be anything we'll keep. Yeah, we don't need that. That's not what we're for. We're not about that. Yeah. So that's a unique question.
And again, it's one of those things. Admittedly, it's kind of personal, fulfilling just to hear people's responses. What I have found is that. Now, of course, no one that I've interviewed yet has actually won the $1 million, so I don't know what they really will do with it. But more times than not, there's a strong level of service out of that from the people I get an opportunity to talk to, which kind of goes against what we hear in the world. People do and want to do, but most of the time, it's a fairly thought out question, and people look at what they can do to give, how they can benefit and help others, and it's kind of a breath of fresh air, whenever you hear people talking in those terms. And then hopefully, too, for the people that I have an opportunity to interview on the podcast, now it's recorded and they're on record. So if any of them do win $1 million, I can hold them to that. And you said you were giving this money away, so it's time. But, most people I found, they do look at that as, what kind of impact can I make with that? As we look at how we can help other people, what characteristics can you define or describe as maybe a favorite boss or coworker that you've had? Not necessarily their name, but just what kind of characteristics do those people have that you are drawn to? That you say, these are the people that, especially in a professional environment, these are the people I want to be around. These are the people I want to work for and work with.
To me, that's easy. It's the people that truly look out for the best interest of their employees, their coworkers or whatnot, where they will walk with you and tell you, you know what, for you and your skill set, this is your best path to help them be the most successful that they can be with what they have. Yeah. As opposed to people that are willing to step on other people to gain. Sure. But they truly are looking out for the best interest of the people around them. And I've had people that have come alongside me in different areas and encouraged me and said, this would be good, and help me along the way and help see weaknesses and strengths to help me better myself for my benefit, not for their gain, but for my benefit. Right. Those are the employers or coworkers that truly have a lasting impact. Yeah. And I think in the long run, I'd work for any of them that do that. Yeah. Contrary to that, are there any particular traits or characteristics that are just sort of toxic for you, and that I just don't work well in this environment or with these types of people? Maybe just you kind of struggle to figure out how to overcome that. Are there any personality traits that you would kind of put in that category? One in particular, probably more than most, and that would be the lack of integrity. Somebody that will say one thing but may not necessarily do that. They may be totally different. Yeah. Because when you have those type of people, you don't know what you can count on. Yeah. You don't know what to expect. The outcome could be varied. Right. So they may say this and they're going to do this, but then they do something else. Or they may do it and you don't know. Right. It's really hard to function in an environment where things are still up in the air, because even though they said they would do something, it may not happen. Yeah.
And so again, in those same terms of looking at how we can help others, are there any books or authors or resources out there that you could recommend to others that are looking for what their success is and kind of striving for that in their life?
Probably the two that I would recommend the most, and I'm old school in a lot of ways, but the first would be the Bible. I think there's so much practical application, even if you're not a believer.
Yeah.
The amazing things that are written in there as far as the wisdom of application and just how to function is phenomenal. And the other is the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yes.
I have oftentimes gone back to that, and I pretty much have it memorized now. But my favorite habit is the second habit, which is beginning with the end in mind.
Yeah.
And so I often think of if I would pass away, what would I want my obituary to be? And then if I could live my life to fulfill that so that people would say those things about me,
right,
then I'm doing it right.
Yeah.
And so I think the whole book's full of great things, and sharpening your saw and things like that.
Yeah.
Excellent information and good application. So
yeah, that's a great book. It's one that I know a lot of people have read, but I know there's still millions that haven't. And I think that's one of those books that the concepts in it are not necessarily new, and they're certainly not incredibly profound, but it clearly defines just sort of some basic things that if we can think about in decision making and in our leadership roles and even just in our daily life, it really can have an impact and just kind of our personal fulfillment of sorts.
Absolutely.
And that's a great one. So as we start to close out here, what advice might you be able to give others that are striving for success, that are looking for their personal success?
I guess making each day count. You only have today once.
Yeah.
And so what are you going to do with it?
Right.
And so let's make today matter. We don't know what yesterday, we can't fix that. Tomorrow, we're not sure.
Yeah.
But today matters. Let's make today count. And so I'm going to have the impact today that I can have to the best of my ability. I'm going to put forth everything I've got to make sure today matters.
Yeah.
And then when tomorrow comes around, if I'm here, I'm going to make that
day.
The next today, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
But you can only deal with in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's great. I have the opportunity to coach football at a couple of different ages, and one of the things that I tell our players oftentimes is that you're only guaranteed one opportunity to do this drill, this rep, that's this time, because we don't know if we're going to do it again. And so whatever that drill is, if it's a tackling drill, a running drill, a catching drill, a blocking drill, this one time when you're doing this blocking drill, that may be the only time you get to do it before you have to execute it and actually use this skill that you're learning. And so do it 100%. Don't salvage your energy. Don't save that energy. Do it 100%, because this may be your only time. And I think that's great advice. It's I know it's easy, and I speak personally. It's easy sometimes for us to think, well, I know I've got to go through this grind again this afternoon or tomorrow or next week, and so I'm going to save a little bit. I maybe not give everything. I don't need to commit everything today to my family because there's tomorrow, but we're not guaranteed tomorrow.
That's right.
And so it's certainly a difficult thing to truly implement on a daily basis. But I think that's great advice, just to understand that we're guaranteed this moment. And so what can we do in this moment to make an impact, as you've said, and to make a difference, and to make sure that we don't leave anything on the table. Yeah. So that's really good. Well, Don, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I've enjoyed talking to you and enjoyed getting to know you over the last several months as we have, and really appreciate you taking the time to come on.
It's my privilege. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Don.
Thank you for checking out today's Business Playmaker. Links to the resources discussed in today's episode are available in the show notes. For more information and resources from your host, you can visit him at www.kylegorman.com. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast for the latest episodes. And until next time, make it a great day.